recorded.
Yes, please state here or present and your location, please. Commissioner Bagley,
Here, Farmington Hills.
Charles,
In Southfield.
Herzog,
Here, Royal Oak.
LaFontaine,
Here, Birmingham.
Long, McGilvery,
Here, Madison Heights.
Nash,
Here, Farmington Hills.
Quarles,
Here, Novi.
Stokes,
Here, West Bloomfield Township, Oakland County, Michigan.
Vanderveen,
Here in wonderful Waterford.
Chairman, we have 9 members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Stokes, supported by Charles.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
Can we move, I'm sorry, I don't have in front of me, the turtle land acquisition to the beginning of the regular agenda. I might not be able to stay the whole time and I'd like to be part of it. And I think our guests would be served well by that.
How about, can we, that won't be in closed session, is it, Becky?
No, it won't.
Okay. Why don't we move that up to the first item on the regular agenda then?
Okay,
Before the water park openings.
okay.
I would
I would
amend
really-
my motion to that, to
Okay.
accept that.
Charles, do you support that? Okay. It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda with that one change. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Like sign for those opposed. Motion carries. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of April 7th, 2021. We do have one correction. Vicky, what are those corrections?
On page 7 of your agenda, under members present, I guess it was force of habit after 10 years. I still listed Dan, so Dan has to be removed and Sue's new title has to be put in there.
Okay,
I'll move with that notation.
okay. Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Bagley. All in favor of approving the minutes as printed with that one correction? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Next item is public comment. Do we have anybody that's here for public comment?
At this time, there is no one on the public comment line.
Thank you so much. Next item is presentations and recognitions, and we have Carolyn Podina, long-term part-time Oakland County employee. Jim?
Yes, good afternoon. I'd actually like to turn it over to Julie Erskine, the Assistant Park Supervisor at Royal Oak. She's actually with Carolyn out at the park. So Julie, if you would,
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Sitting here with Carolyn, and behind us, you can see staff is waiting outside for this, so they wanted to be a part of this today. So I have the plaque here. I'm just going to read it to you so you can see. So Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission and staff thank Carolyn Podina for her service to guests at Groveland Oaks County Park. During Carolyn's 26 years at Groveland Oaks, she has worn many hats and worked under many different supervisors, all of whom agree we couldn't live without her. Since becoming the office manager in 2009, Carolyn has made park operations hum with efficiency and excellent customer service. With her positive attitude, intimate knowledge of the park, and passion for the campers and campground, Carolyn is respected by staff and campers alike, and her dedication to Carolyn's contributions are much appreciated. And she truly is the backbone of Groveland Oaks, and we can't thank her enough for everything she does for us every day. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
Carolyn, just let me say thank you so much for your many years at Groveland Oaks and everything you've done for the parks. We certainly do appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the recognition. I love working here. Look
It's
forward
well
to
deserved.
more years.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is communications, capital improvement expense summary. We need a motion to receive and file. Is there a motion? Moved by Quarles, supported by Nash. You want to go over that at all, Jeff, or?
Yeah, just briefly referring to page 19 of your agenda packet. There are two items on today's agenda requiring additional use of fund balance. Those are found on page 74, which is $16,694 for a movie screen audio transmitter. And the second item is found on page 77, and that's for the contracted countywide invasive species treatments for $30,896. And also, as of March 31st, your unrestricted net position balance is $29,211,373.23.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
What page is that on, Jeff?
Sure,
What'd
that's
you say?
on page 19. Page 19.
Are there any questions or comments?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
Jeff, where are we on our curve in relation to unrestricted net assets and our total funds?
Sure, the total unrestricted as of March 31st is 29.2 million. On page 20, I did a projection throughout the end of the fiscal year, and I see that balance going down to 23.5 million, and that's just the normal average that we go through for the park system for the rest of the fiscal year, where the operating expenses are in excess of the revenues coming in. So all in all, you're in pretty good shape. The current amended budget is $33.4 million. And the net restriction, the policy is 50% of that, or 16.7 million. And currently you're 12.4 million above that mark.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please, on the expense summary?
Yes, Commissioner Charles,
Yes.
Herzog,
Yes.
LaFontaine,
Yes.
McGilvery,
Yes?
Nash,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Vanderveen,
Yes.
and Bagley.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. We have items A through K. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Quarles, supported by Vanderveen. Can we have a roll call vote, please, on the consent agenda?
Yes, Commissioner LaFontaine,
Yes.
McGilvery,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Vanderveen,
I can't vote no after Gary had me support the motion, so I'm a yes. I was anyway.
Bagley,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
and Herzog.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Very good, thank you. The next item that we're gonna have is we moved up potential property acquisition. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa Proust to go over everything.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through, oh, thanks, Phil. I'm going to run through a presentation that essentially goes over all of the information that was in that memo that we forgot to include in the packets accidentally, but that I know was sent out to you this afternoon. So we do apologize. You might not have had a chance to see that yet, but I'm going to run through it. Here we go. So this is the property that we discussed last month in closed session, and I know we might have caught a lot of folks off guard at that meeting because that was the first time a lot of you were hearing about it, and we didn't have a full presentation and a package put together yet to evaluate. So I'm hoping that this will kind of answer some of those questions and lead to a healthy discussion about this potential property acquisition for the park system. There we go. Sorry about that. So just to kind of show on a map where the property is located, this is a map showing all of our different county parks. The ones that are in red are the ones that an annual vehicle permit is required. The ones in blue is where it's not. That's why you see two different colors. But you can see Red Oaks down here and Catalpa, and then Turtle Woods is kind of right here, kind of on the Macomb County, Oakland County border, near John R. and Square Lake Road. This is an aerial of the property. So it's actually two parcels of property, this piece here, this big piece, and then this little piece to the east as well. And what we'll be talking about is that Troy School District is looking at potentially, well, not potentially, they're moving forward with selling off approximately 11 acres on Square Lake Road to a developer for a small subdivision development, and then looking to sell the rest of the property as a potential park. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, I'm sorry, Chris Bunch is actually on the meeting today as well. He's the executive director of the Six Rivers Land Conservancy. So as we get a little further into this, if there's any questions specifically for Chris, I just wanted the commissioners to know that he was on the call as well. So as an overview, the Turtle Woods property is about 83.5 acres. It is owned by the Troy School District. As I mentioned, they're looking to sell off about 11 acres to Robertson Brothers for a subdivision development, which would leave about 72 acres for a potential park. Our partners on this would be Six Rivers Land Conservancy and possibly the Nature Conservancy of Michigan, looking forward to a possible restoration project. The history of the property, it was purchased back in the 60s by the school district as a potential expansion site. They have known for quite some time now that they were not going to need this property as a school expansion site. They don't need to build any new schools at the moment. So they have been looking to find a way to sell the property. But at the same time, they know that it's become this important piece of property to the community. And therefore, it's become important to the school district to see it somehow preserved into the future so that it can continue to be used for those purposes. So it has been a long-time interest of Six Rivers Land Conservancy way back when they were the Oakland Land Conservancy. And part of the interest of the Conservancy and the Nature Conservancy is that there is potential remnant Lake Plain prairie ecosystem on the property. So that I know is up for debate whether or not that particular ecosystem is there or not. But if there is, that would be pretty unique for us to acquire and manage. So as staff, we kind of walk through some opportunities as well as some challenges with this property, just to kind of paint the full picture for the commission's consideration. So opportunities, obviously, this would preserve open space and provide trails in Oakland County, which are the two top things that our residents continue to tell us they want when we do those countywide surveys. Would create a new park, a new Oakland County park within a 15-minute drive time of about 300,000 residents. We also did a 30-minute drive time, and we've got about 1.5 million residents inside that 30-minute drive time. We're obviously looking at preservation of green space, which we know is important to the commission and to our residents. Benefits including stormwater management, green infrastructure connectivity, and then of course the wildlife and pollinator habitat that would be maintained here. Another opportunity is that the way we're looking at approaching this, the acquisition would be essentially fully grant funded, other than our, our closing costs and due diligence and things like that, that I'll touch on in a minute. And that the parking lot, at least an initial parking lot, including ingress and egress off of Square Lake Road, is projected to be constructed by the developer. So that takes some of that initial cost off of our hands. These are just those drive time maps showing the 15 and 30-minute drive times. So some challenges that we've been discussing. The biggest one, obviously, is that this is not a budgeted acquisition. It's not currently in our budget, and it will have an impact on our net position and our annual operating budgets, which I'll get into in a minute. That parking lot that's being proposed by the developer is great. It's about 14 spaces, which is really about half of what we would want to see for a county park property. So we would be looking to potentially expand that parking lot to make sure that everybody had access to it. We likely would not require a vehicle pass at this location, mostly because it is set in a neighborhood and we run into issues with people not wanting to park in the parking lot, so they park on the residential street, which we don't want to have to worry about that. So we likely would not require a vehicle pass, so there wouldn't be any additional revenue necessarily generated from the property itself. We'd also need to hire some additional staff. Our operations folks are very hardworking and very busy, so we're talking about potential additional staff, and then trying to figure out internally kind of where this fits, what park supervisor would manage it, how would they oversee it, and kind of what that all would look like. So we'd have to work through that as well. This just kind of shows, so this is the development that's being proposed. I think it's going to City Council in Troy sometime within the next few weeks. In red here is the parking lot that they're proposing that they would build. This is Square Lake down here, so this would be the access through the neighborhood to this parking lot. We would be looking at potentially expanding to the east onto the park property to make that parking lot a little bit bigger. We can't go north because this is all wetland through here. So getting back to the expense side of things, in terms of acquisition expenses, the property acquisition itself, the goal would be for that to be grant funded. We don't know the exact value of the property yet. We anticipate it being over $1 million, but we would be looking for that to be grant funded through the trust fund. Our expenses would include that facilitation fee that we discussed to Six Rivers over the course of the process of transferring the property and getting it into Oakland County Parks' hands. So that would assist them with their costs in helping facilitate that process. We would anticipate our typical due diligence and closing costs of about $25,000. Surveying, clearing, and fencing could be upwards of $250,000. That is a placeholder number. We don't know exactly what type of fencing we would put in there just yet. But as a placeholder, that is a potential expense. And then the parking lot expansion, we estimated about $60,000. We have heard from the city of Troy that they're interested in, if they can recoup their costs, there's a certain number that they're trying to get for the property to put back into their coffers to further their mission as a school district. Anything above that number, they were interested in potentially donating back to the park system, either to help with the parking or to help with stewardship of the property. So that's kind of going to be an ongoing conversation. And then future expenses, we would be looking at potential future trail improvement, which I think would be a really great grant opportunity. And then potentially more aggressive natural resource restoration if we could find a partnership or some grant funding to do that. And then staff put together a potential kind of estimated annual operating budget, which puts us, really the operating budget would be these two numbers combined, the park operating budget and the natural resource management. So this just kind of shows you about $113,000-ish. Again, high level estimations for that type of general park operations activity. And then about $20,000 a year in natural resource management. And that would be kind of not the minimum, but not a huge restoration project at this time, essentially kind of the status quo of what is out there, some minimal burning, some invasive species removal, really keeping the trails clear and open so that it's accessible for people to use. So this chart, and this was in the memo as well, this kind of shows all of those numbers that I just said, broken down over the course of the next several years and what that could potentially look like. Years 3 and 4, if we move forward with this, would kind of blend together because we would acquire the property probably sometime late in year 3. So some of the improvement dollars and the operating dollars could get pushed into the next year, but just for general conversation purposes, you can see that facilitation fee to Six Rivers being spread out over 3 years, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. All of those acquisition costs, the survey, the fencing, and all that stuff fits in here. The potential parking lot expansion, And then the operations budget, which I put in just kind of a partial budget for that year, not knowing exactly what time of year we would acquire it, but and then the totals down here for what that potential total annual investment could be in the year that we would acquire the property. So the proposal that is in front of the commission for discussion today is essentially that the school district is looking to secure the value of this property to further their mission, which is education. As much as they love this property, they're not in the park business, but they would very much like to see the property preserved and protected. And because of that, they're willing to sell the property at 75% of the appraised value, which what that does is it lets us use that remaining 25% equity as the match for the grant, which would mean we wouldn't have to bring any cash to the table in order to get the grant funding. And as I mentioned before, the school district's possibly interested in donating some of that additional revenue toward potential park improvements going forward. And then Six Rivers is willing to purchase the property and hold it until Oakland County Parks could purchase it with grant funding. So the reason again for that is that with trust fund funding, we can't use trust fund dollars to purchase property that's already publicly held, which Troy School District is a public entity. So therefore Six Rivers steps in and kind of acts as that intermediary, holds the property until such time that we can get the grant funding to purchase it from Six Rivers. So what that process would look like is, I know we talked briefly last month about a letter of intent. So that would be the next step, that if the commission wanted to move forward, we would bring that back at the next meeting for you to review and approve. The letter of intent with the Troy School District and Six Rivers has already been signed by the school district, just to let the commission know that. They are very interested and ready to move forward when and if we are. So the commission would approve that letter of intent. It would go to ED&I committee for their approval. And then that would kind of essentially jumpstart the process for Six Rivers to begin their acquisition of the property. So the next step after that would be to have an appraisal completed. Troy School District would sell the property to Six Rivers, potentially maybe in 2021. And then Six Rivers would hold the property until we could apply to the trust fund in 2022. If all goes well and we're awarded a grant, we would know that at the end of 22. And then we would complete our acquisition of the property from Six Rivers sometime in 2023, probably toward the end of the year. And I put a couple asterisks there to remind myself to mention that all of the parties, Six Rivers and Troy School District, are essentially willing to let us take a couple runs at the trust fund if necessary. So if we apply in 2022 and we don't get the funding, but we think that we were close and we want to try again in 23, they're willing to kind of hold the property and let us take another run at it. And if at that point we didn't get the funding and it didn't look like we were going to get the funding for some reason, there would be clauses in both purchase agreements that the property would essentially go back to Troy School District. So, and then at that point, you know, we'd be out of it and they could move forward with the sale however they wanted to. And then this chart, this was not in your packets because we've been working on this up until today. But this is just to kind of paint the picture, and Jeff has asked me to caveat that this is for discussion purposes only. This is his, you saw earlier in the packet, that 2022 or 21 net position forecast, which I know we usually do about a year out. We went out to 2025 with this and just started to put in, so you can see here, the yellow here are some unknowns that could be on the table over the next 4 years that, you know, come up in discussion, and we kind of wanted to get down on paper and see what that potentially looks like in terms of our net position, so that the commission could discuss, you know, where this Turtle Woods acquisition might fall in relation to some of those other things that are hanging out there. So you can see the Turtle Woods acquisition we put in here for 2023, that $350,000. We added in 23 the cost for potential removal of the water park, if that's the direction that the commission chooses to go. Obviously, if we choose to invest, that number goes up. So it's just a placeholder. We added in a placeholder for some potential additional expenses at the conference centers. Rising construction costs we know is very real right now. So Mike put in a percentage here for potential increased construction costs, just to, you know, make sure we're playing it safe with the numbers. And then we've been talking for a while about potentially hiring some new full-time staff. So we threw in some placeholders for that as well. So the real numbers to look at down here in green, assuming all of these expenses in the yellow and the orange came to fruition, the top number in green down here would be the projected net position balance at the end of that fiscal year. And then the number below it would be the number above or below the current unrestricted net asset policy. So you can see if we had all of these unanticipated expenses, by the end of 2025, we could be potentially just above that policy limit, which is half of our operating funds in that position. So there's a lot of what ifs in there. There's a lot of, some of those numbers could be high, they could be low, but we really just thought it was important to kind of put everything out there that we've been talking about so the commission can have a discussion about this property, kind of looking at everything in terms of big picture. And that, I believe, is my last slide. I know that's a lot of information, but I am happy to answer questions, and I know Chris is happy to answer questions as well.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Melissa or Chris? Mr. Stokes?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Melissa, I have 3 question areas. I'm sorry, I didn't hear, what is Six Rivers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Six Rivers is a local land conservancy. They have been around for a while. They used to be the Oakland Land Conservancy. They do a lot of really great conservation projects in the greater Metro Detroit area. That's probably the best summary I can give. I know Chris is on if you want to hear a little bit more about what Six Rivers does, but we've worked with them quite a bit over the years, so we know them very well.
So you say that Six Rivers would purchase the property now at 75% of the existing appraised value. Is that correct?
Yes, they would have a new appraisal done, which we haven't done yet, but they would do that in alignment with the trust fund standards for appraisals, just to make sure that they're looking at the right numbers.
So in what year would you anticipate that we would be buying from Six Rivers? A couple of years out?
I would say end of calendar year 23.
Okay, and would we be looking at purchasing from Six Rivers at the value that the price that they are paying at this time? Or would we be paying 75% of the appraised value at the end of 23 into 24?
It would be I think we would be able to use the same appraised value for the whole process. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. So it should be the same amount that Six Rivers paid to Troy.
Well, how much money does Six Rivers make in the deal?
So Six Rivers essentially makes that $35,000 facilitation fee, of which I think we've structured it so that $10,000 is paid upon essentially execution of that letter of intent. $10,000 is paid upon Six Rivers closing on the property with Troy School District and essentially taking title to the property. And then the remaining 15% would be wrapped up into our closing with Six Rivers.
So you're saying the total amount that Six Rivers is projected to earn on this deal would be $35,000?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned grant funding. From whom would that grant come?
Yep. So the source we're looking at would be the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. It's a pot of funding that we've been very successful at in the past, although we haven't applied in several years. I did run it through the scoring criteria for the trust fund, and it scored fairly well. So we think that we would have a pretty good shot.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned there was 83 acres roughly, of which 1,100 are going to a development. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear what that development might be and where adjacent to the proposed park area would that development be?
Yes, let me go back up here to this earlier slide. So this down here is Square Lake Road.
Wait,
And then this is all the park property up here. So it would be this 10-acre parcel that's right off of Square Lake Road. So it's essentially the frontage on Square Lake.
Could you show me again Square Lake Road? I don't have it all on my screen.
Oh,
When-
yeah. Let me see if I can, this might be a better image. Well,
If you go back to the other one, I've made it smaller so I can see
okay, perfect.
the whole thing.
So Square Lake, we did have it labeled down here, but it's actually this road that runs right here. So it's essentially right at the bottom of this shaded area that says 10-acre proposed for development. This is Square Lake that runs right along the south of that.
All right, I don't know how to get that on my screen, but that's all right. What is the development that would go in there or proposed
it's
to go there?
It's single family homes. It's Robertson Brothers is the developer that the city of Troy is working with. So you can see here, I think it's 31 or 32 homes. It's a subdivision that they're proposing will be called the Meadows of Troy.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are all my questions at this time. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? David?
Yeah, I got a couple. Thank you. Melissa, if you could, not going to hold you to it, give us a ballpark estimate of the value of that property. I know it has been final appraised.
Chris, I don't know if Chris has a better handle on that than I do. I think we were estimating that it's well above $1 million. I think 1.2 was an estimate that I had heard thrown out, but it has not been appraised in a while.
Okay, got it. That's someplace between $1 and $1 million.
Hey, Melissa.
Now, what about, there's 11 acres that are adjacent to it, owned by the Troy Schools. What about that parcel?
It would all be, are you talking about this up here?
Yes.
That is part of it. That's all, that would all be part of our acquisition.
Oh, okay, got it. Thanks. Incidentally, there's no such place as Sylvan Lake Golf Course.
Yes, that is a typo.
That's Sanctuary Lake is the name of it.
Yes, that is a typo. Sorry about that.
All right,
Hey.
those are my questions. Thank you.
Hey, Melissa, can I just, this is
Yeah,
Jody
go ahead.
Hall from Corporation Counsel. I'm here for the legal end, but David, we have a copy of the purchase agreement between the Robertson Brothers and the Troy School District, and the purchase price for approximately 12 acres is 1.4 million along Square Lake Road there, but you have to take into account that's mostly uplands.
Yeah.
So just so you know.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
If you don't mind, I'd like to say a couple of things. I've spoken in favor of this last time, and I want to again. This is a real opportunity for a natural area in a very urban area, region here, and I think it would be just that is a significant reason to do this. Allowing it to have the pathways and things, it gives people it's an attractive place to come to. And it was mentioned in the presentation that this is an opportunity for green infrastructure, for demonstrating projects that which can show the effect of green infrastructure, doing public education around that. My nonprofit would be very interested in helping make whatever parking lot you do a good green parking lot with native species, and we could have put a little plaque on there, an educational plaque to show people what this is and why we're doing it. This could be a real opportunity for helping people understand the natural resource issues we have. And again, this is something that fits with the park's mission very, very well. So I think this is a real opportunity that just doesn't come along very often. And I think we have a real chance to make something good of it. So I just wanted to say that. And I appreciate Melissa's and everybody's input on this. It's great to see this. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Are there any other questions? Amanda?
I just want to second what Jim said. I think the opportunities just outweigh the challenges, especially the environmental sustainability aspects of this and the education part. And they align with the goals and objectives that we have. I was out there yesterday with my 2-year-old daughter, and it's a great park. My daughter even said, "What's that sound, Mommy?" And I said, "Birds, lots of birds." So it's needed for city kids that don't get the opportunity to be in nature that often.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Lance, go ahead.
I do. I have one. Earlier, Melissa, you mentioned that development is going to be residential, correct?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, and like I said, I haven't looked at this any other than the slides that you have on here, so I really can't see. I'm just wondering, when developments go in, they need sewers, they need places for runoff. I don't know the topography of this area, but I'm just wondering if we go ahead with this, if Six Rivers or someone can ensure that whatever is done in that development as required to meet the requirements for residents to live in there, that this area is protected, because there is wetland, it looked like, in there, which is, we want natural habitat, but we wouldn't want an overburden of water being run off into that area. Is there any language that can be put into the agreement with Six Rivers that they will ensure that this property would be protected during the time that they're holding it and before we purchase it?
Yeah, so two answers there. The first is that the city is also very adamant about the retention and making sure that what's on the property stays on the property. You can see from their site plan here that they do have a fairly large retention pond that they would be constructing that would essentially be a buffer between the development and the rest of the park property. So that was very intentional and required by the city. So we feel very good about that. And Chris and I have discussed the fact that essentially once they acquire the property, they're willing to kind of work with us on pretty much anything. And they're happy to even essentially lease the property over to us early so that we can get out there and do our due diligence. So they're more than happy to work with us on that type of thing.
I see. Will you do any due diligence before going ahead with this at all? Will any due diligence take place on that property?
I mean, we will do our typical, our Jody, remind me.
Yeah. Well, you want me to answer that
Yeah, go
quick?
ahead.
So the County Board of Commissioners rules regarding property acquisition require us to do due diligence. And so in the purchase agreement with Six Rivers, there will be our standard requirements for all due diligence, phase 1, environmental assessment, surveys, we have a whole litany. So it's in our standard
Okay.
Board of Commissioners rules. Additionally, just also the site plan will have to be approved with and I'm sure Commissioner Nash can speak to this regarding the retention ponds. There's many more requirements that will have to be followed, and it will be more complex than what we would put into any type of purchase agreement or deed.
All right. Thank you.
So Melissa or Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, I'll just give you a little bit of background on our role in this and our role in other projects like this throughout the region, if that helps people understand a little bit.
Go ahead, Chris. That's fine.
Thank you. As Melissa indicated, Six Rivers has been involved with this since we were the Oakland Land Conservancy. Way back, I have a newsletter from 1990 that shows a hike we did out there, and I know that our interaction started on this property before that. It has been assessed significantly and substantially through the efforts of the Troy School District. They have spent a lot of money having the property assessed to understand its value and what they could do with it when they sold it, when they went through their process of evaluating what properties they had that were excess and could be let go. And so this was one of those properties. They have no intention of putting a school on it anymore, and they don't need it anymore. But because they've owned it for so long and they understand it so well and the community is so committed to it, they've been very committed to trying to see this protected. So we've actually been through several approaches to try and get this permanently protected, including working with a previous developer who backed out at the last minute that was going to preserve it through a mitigation approach. We believe that working in partnership with the parks and the school district is a great way to get this secured as a community asset, and using the trust fund, doing so with minimal expense to the residents. We will bring back $1 million+ piece of property to the benefit of the public with no cash outlay from the local coffers for this. So that's a pretty important thing. We've done numerous projects like this now. We have 3 that we did successfully last year that were all trust fund applications that were all successful. So we own those properties right now, and we've actually leased them back to the public agencies, specifically Oakland Township Parks. We've got a 200-acre piece that is an addition to their Lost Lake Nature Park. St. Clair County Parks, we bought 10 acres on the north channel of the St. Clair River, which is going to become a new park and access site. And we've got about 40 acres that we purchased in Chesterfield Township on the Salt River. That's going to become the Salt River Nature Center. And all three of those trust fund applications were approved and funded last year. So we will close on those projects, we hope, by the end of this year. We've got another one in the hopper this year for Marine City, and we've got one on track to become an application for next year. So we're very excited about the opportunity to be able to include this one as well. And I guess the last thing I'll say, just by way of background for you guys, is that we have a pretty good relationship with the trust fund. In addition to the applications that we've had in, I attend every one of the trust fund board meetings. We have been invited to serve on their stakeholder committees in the past, and we actually host a tour. We host one of their regular meetings and a tour here in Southeast Michigan. We've done it 5 times now, I think. Obviously, we didn't do it last year because nobody was doing anything, but we will be hosting them in October of this year, assuming that everything's opened back up again for their October board meeting, and we'll have them here the day before to do a tour of the region. You guys were involved with us when we did that, I think 4 years ago, in the southern part of Oakland County. So they know us well, we know them well, they understand the importance of the projects we're doing, and I think, as Melissa said, not only does this one score high within just the confines of their scoring system, but it gets a huge amount of credibility and interest because it's such an important natural property in such a heavily developed area. So I think you could have great confidence that this will go, and you've got great partners in Troy School District who has committed a lot of time and resources to trying to get this protected, notwithstanding that, running parks is not their business. So I think it's a great opportunity here, and I am very excited to have the chance to work with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
May I ask you a question, please?
Yeah,
You
go ahead.
mentioned the term, that sometimes you lease back property. This deal, you will be selling the property, not leasing, to Oakland County. Is that correct?
That's correct. Normally what we do is once we take possession of it, because we'll have a letter of intent and we'll have a purchase agreement in place with you guys, and we'll know that by the time you get the grant, you'll end up owning the property. So normally when we take ownership of it, we're happy to turn around and lease it to you during that interim period. So if we own it for 18 months or 2 years while you're going through the trust fund process, we will have leased it to you, and you can begin working on it during that period before you actually secure the grant and close on ownership of the property.
Do any of those lease fees go toward the payment to own the property, or are they just straight lease?
Well, so that's a decision that we would make in the discussions we have with you as this thing moves forward. So in some instances, we have leased the property to the public agency for $1, just enough to make the contract legal. In the case of the North Channel project in St. Clair County, because we had to borrow $1.5 million for it, they paid us $300,000 lease, which we then immediately turned around and paid down the loan on to reduce the interest costs. And that $300,000 goes towards their purchase price when they close the deal. So the answer is yes, it does go toward the purchase price. In your case, the way we structure this deal, it's unlikely that there would need to be a cash payment for the lease other than enough to make the contract legal.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for your part of this. Is there any other questions or concerns anybody wants to talk about?
Just wanted to reinforce that Six Rivers is great group to work with. Couldn't have a better partner. I think they're just good folks, and we'll have a great project with them.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Nancy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to just reiterate something I said at the last meeting, and I am going to vote for this, but what would help me as a commissioner, as we have a number of cities that come to us with proposals and would like to partner with the Parks and Rec on building. It would be great if I understood how we make that decision. Is made on the fact that one of the on location, because we don't have any facilities in a location. Does that take a higher priority of if a city would have the funding that they need to help with the park recs? In short, what I'm trying to get to is it is easier for me as a commissioner, because I certainly don't speak for any other commissioner, as when these decisions are made, if I understood how the decision is made. So I don't know if there's a criteria, if there's something that you look at in particular, and if there is, I hope that you'll be willing to share that information with me, so that when I see other city administrators and want to know why their project could not be partnered with Parks and Rec, I will be in a better position to address their issues. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you. What we'll do is we'll have Melissa give us your answers to your questions, Nancy, and we can present that at the June meeting. I just want to
thank you.
Mention, yep. Just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, a great job on Melissa Prouse's part on writing the report that she wrote.
Yep.
And I thank Chris Bunch for his part of being of this whole acquisition of this property. I do have some concerns, and I mentioned them before, and I'll mention them again. I think, first of all, it would be a great asset for Oakland County Parks. I really do. But my concerns are this. First of all, is the cost of improvements. That's a cost. Right now, we just got a millage pass and with an increase, and we have $21 million in capital improvement projects that are still on the burner, still need to be done. Some of the costs are just estimates, and I can appreciate that, and I thank Melissa for at least making an attempt to give us some estimates. A couple of other of my concerns is the property being landlocked. It's landlocked because the school district is selling out the front portion on Square Lake Road to a developer to build houses. We don't have any other parks where you have to go through a subdivision essentially we have signage on the main road, and I'm wondering if that's a possibility, signage on the main road, and just to worry that nobody's going to realize it's there. So it will be an investment one way or the other. That's including putting in the trails, parking lots, and fencing, and everything else involved. And then nobody can get to it to use it other than through that one subdivision to get to a parking lot. So those are my concerns. I still haven't decided yet myself fully. Melissa, my question to you is, what is the timetable on this? Are we voting today on this? Are we passing this down for another month or two, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so if I could really quick, I can address your last question that you asked, and then I can answer the process question. But we will definitely be allowed to have a sign on Square Lake Road that indicates that the park is there. And I don't know if Jody wants to speak to if there's any clarification needed, but I know that we will have some sort of easement over the drive, the subdivision street, and the parking lot that will guarantee us that access. I do understand your concern, but that is something that we would make sure was baked into that purchase agreement.
Yeah, this is Jody. So I've had conversations with the attorney for Troy School District and the attorney for the city of Troy, and they understand that it would be a deal breaker. You know, we need an easement for the parking lot and an easement to go over that entrance drive to get back to the parking lot. And they all understand that, and so does the developer Robinson. So that's not going to be a problem. The other thing, it is important that at some point, when we get into fine tuning, it would be nice to at least move forward and start negotiating with them before Robinson and Troy Schools transfer the property, because then at that point we could have Troy Schools, if there's some fine tweaking we need to do, maybe we ask the developer to pay for the expansion of the parking lot. We can have Troy Schools put that in the purchase agreement. You know, we can ask those types of questions up front, you know, that type of thing. I don't know. I mean, that's just an example. I don't know if the developer would pay, you know, for the expansion of the parking lot, but heck, he's going to be out there. So, you know, it's not going to cost him much more to expand that parking lot, you know. So those are the types of things that we could discuss.
Thanks, Jody. And process-wise, to answer your question, what we were hoping today, and there is a draft motion in your packets, we're essentially looking for a vote of essentially to move ahead, to continue the conversation. The motion actually reads to direct staff to continue with the due diligence and work with Six Rivers Land Conservancy, the Troy School District, and the land developer on the potential acquisition of Turtle Woods and the development of the parking lot. So we don't have the letter of intent for the commission to approve today, but we were kind of looking for that nod of approval to continue moving forward, and then we would bring back that letter of intent for your approval at the next meeting.
Okay. David, go ahead.
I'm not against that. So don't misunderstand me, or the project. I'm not against that. But my concern is when we approved the millage, we said we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to address our deferred maintenance, which is $23 to $25 million. We're going to enter in some more partnerships, local partnerships with other communities for the development of parks. We're going to address the invasive species. We're going to highlight and emphasize trail development. Nancy Quarles mentioned that we really ought to have a criteria, which we've wrestled with in the past, for what really constitutes a county park. I just think we need to look at this in the bigger picture. And I'd like to know how we're addressing all that big picture, so that we don't find ourselves behind the curve like we did a couple of years ago. So anyway, I think we ought to look at that overall picture of things. I'm not against this project. Don't misunderstand me.
Andrea, go ahead.
I'll just add that I am in support of this project. I share some concerns that were mentioned when we talk about the millage and deferred maintenance and all those other costs. But when I look at this project, I look at it as opportunity is really what's kind of driving this. Like, will we have an opportunity to do something like this similar? I look at the diversity that it's going to bring to our parks portfolio, which I think is super, super important. And I think it's responsible growth. We know that if we want to grow as a park system, there is a level of risk that we have to assume in doing that. And I think this project kind of wraps it all into one. And when we discuss deferred maintenance and looking long-term, if we look at how we're viewing this property right now, it's not over-engineered. It's not going to be a massive expense in the long term. It'll continue, but because it doesn't have a ton of the built-up amenities that some of our other parks have, I think we need to consider that. So for me, while I always get nervous with taking big chances, I think this is a chance and an opportunity that we really need to grab hold of and move with. I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and I'm 100% supportive.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Melissa, one more question. You want to move ahead today and approve this? Or can it be postponed till next month and we have all the answers to those questions for sure, and then we move ahead?
I would say that's up to the commission. I mean, we can definitely provide some additional information. I hear the questions about how are we determining, what we're investing in and what we're not. I think with this piece of property, we don't see this necessarily as partnering with the city of Troy to manage an existing park, because it's not an existing park, it's school district property. So it is under threat of development. If we didn't take them up on this opportunity, it wouldn't continue to be a park in perpetuity. And I think that's very different from potentially partnering with local communities on their park developments and their park operations. And I think the way we're looking at doing that in the future really are these two new grant programs that we're developing. So we have criteria in place that look at a whole host of things. This item is actually on the agenda again later down to talk about, but that really will be the mechanism moving forward, how we're going to partner with these local communities on their park projects. So hopefully that answers the question, but that, at least from a staff standpoint, that's how we've been looking at it.
Okay. Lance, you had a question?
Well, I have a comment. I think this park is a great idea. There's no question. I fully support it. But I will tell you, in following along with what Mr. McGilvery said, I have a lot of experience working with developers all over West Bloomfield. And I hear, and please don't misunderstand, because I have high regard and respect for all of the entities that are making verbal statements. But I've found that as the development goes forward and various issues come up, unless things are in writing up front and firm, then they tend to be kind of pushed to the side. And what concerns me, for example, it may seem small, getting access down that road to the parking lot. Because I would think if we vote on this today, that's voting to put that deposit down from the last meeting, that we're going to go forward. And that's why I would be hesitant to say, to vote on this before all of the little strings are looked at, if not tied together, at least knowing where we're going to tie them together. That's my only reservation in taking making a yes vote today.
Hey,
So
Melissa, can I
miss
take that?
something, Melissa?
Go ahead, Jody.
I thought,
Go ahead, Jody.
I thought the
Okay.
issue was to continue the conversation. That's what we're voting
Yeah.
on.
Well, and also we can't have a conversation with Six Rivers and Detroit School District. We need authorization from the Parks Commission and the Board of Commissioners to even start the conversation pursuant to the board rules. So we couldn't even attempt to tie those issues up until I get the okay to go forward to talk about the easement. Because obviously, as a lawyer, that's the first thing I screamed out in my mind. We need to get that tied up, but I can't even talk to them about it unless we have approval.
Mr. McGilvery?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so just briefly, I think as I understood Melissa, and I think what I just heard Jody reinforce, what they're asking you for today is the approval to move forward a little bit and answer a couple more questions, but then actually not enter into the letter of intent until your next meeting. And I think and I want to spool back to the question about the timing on this. And what I want to suggest is, if we're looking to put in a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund application by April 1 of next year, and we're looking to cross the T's and dot the I's before that happens, working with actually three, because you have your county commission involved as well. So three major public agencies, then we really need to get the horses out of the barn and moving on this. And I will now go back and say, once again, we have been intimately involved with Troy School Board on this for literally years and years and years. And I was intimately involved in the previous development proposal that, including testifying before Troy City Council and committing to the access road and the parking lot, which was included in the previous development, and the Troy School Board required that. So they're very committed to making sure that this is available and usable for a future entity to operate as a park, and you can be fully confident that they're willing to do this. The thing that we can probably share with you next time, I'm sure I can ask Troy School Board to give us the minutes, but their board has not only signed the letter of intent with us, but they've actually authorized their administration to move forward and take all the steps that are necessary to get this sale and this project done. So they're trying to clear some things out of the way so that we can get through whatever processes we need to do in order to make it easier for you guys. So they're fully vested in this, and they're obviously bringing a fair amount of money to the table because they're willing to sacrifice 25% of the value. So I think you got a lot of things in your favor. We certainly want to answer those questions for you, but I think we also want to get this thing moving if we truly want to get it done.
Jody, a question for you. Can we make a motion to move forward on this without actually committing at this point?
Well, yeah, that's what we need. Exactly. You're not committing because don't forget, we will have to bring the purchase agreement back to you guys for approval. So right now, what we need is just the motion like Melissa stated. So we have authorization to negotiate, and that's what that's what Edie and I will have to give us too. So you're just giving us authorization to negotiate, but we're even going to take it one step farther. We're going to come back and bring you that letter of intent next month to approve. And then after that, we'll have to bring back the purchase agreement. So there's a lot of layers here. But if you don't do this today, then we can't try. I mean, I can't as a lawyer go and try to talk to people and try to get all these loose ends tied up, like the easement and all that kind of stuff.
Andrea, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I was just going to make the motion
And that motion is?
to direct staff to continue with the due diligence and work with Six Rivers Conservancy, the Troy School District, and the land developer on the potential land acquisition of Turtle Woods and the development of the parking lot, and also identify any anticipated expenses that were not budgeted in the next 3 to 5 years.
I support.
Supported by Nash. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. McGilvery,
Yes.
do you want to include in the motion that staff brings it back with the letter of intent in June and the purchase agreement in July on that motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is that okay with Andrea and with Jim?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Jody, are we okay putting a date in there for the purchase agreement, or do we just want to say letter of intent in June and then purchase agreement to follow?
Yeah, I would do that because I don't know, because exactly, it's still, the site plan is still pending in front of, in front of Troy Planning Commission. So for the Robertson brothers, so it might be a little bit longer before we get in July. I would just say we'll bring back the purchase agreement, but also you might want to add in there that you're going to go to Edie and I to get authorization to negotiate.
Are you willing to include that, Andrea? Yes. Jim, do you support that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Can we have a roll call vote on that motion, please?
Yes. Commissioner LaFontaine,
Yes.
McGilvery,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Vanderveen,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Herzog.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Now, we got past that. I accidentally skipped something on the agenda, and that was the budget. The operating budget proposal for 22 to 24. Sue, do you want to mention anything, or?
Well, I thought you just approved it. That's why. We do have a presentation and we will make it brief for you on our 2022 proposed budget to the commission.
Okay,
I would like to thank all of our staff and Jeff in fiscal services for helping us prepare this budget. It is literally a year-round process for our park supervisors and chiefs and administration to put together. It has become a financial roadmap for park supervisors, recreation supervisors, and other staff to guide their financial decisions based on this budget. So it is really used throughout the year by staff. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our budget runs October 1st through September 31st. And once this budget is approved, it goes to the Board of Commissioners and is approved by the board. Our budget compiles of 3 different buckets of money. We have our operating budget. We also have our capital equipment budget and our capital improvement budget. We have gone over both our capital equipment and capital improvement budgets at our previous meeting, but there is information provided, and I know that Mike will be bringing to the next meeting more information on capital improvement budget. Our budget for 2022 is $34 million. There is an increase in that budget due to the millage monies. And I don't want to go through and read this, it's very self-explanatory, but what we have done is we have used these monies to help with offsetting through revenues that we include with our expenses, as well as any capital improvement projects that we have. So by the end of the 2022 budget year, it's estimated that our projected unrestricted net position will be over $24 million. We always use our strategic plan, our capital improvement plans, and our capital equipment plans to help guide us with decisions that we make in that what we put in our budget. We also have been using our fiscal sustainability committee to assist us with this guidance.
okay. Any questions on the proposed budget?
Jeff, did you want to go over these?
I can just talk briefly about the, we have, 3 charts, I think, starting on page 5. Bill, if you could go to there. Yeah, the next 3 charts out here are just a very brief way of trying to portray a 200-page budget document so that you can just get a bird's eye view of the trend between the revenues and expenses and also some of the categories within the budget. As you can see on, I think, slide 7, that personnel makes up a large part of the expense budget. Of course, operations do as well. Going back to slide 6, for the revenues, you can see the impact of the property tax levy which came through. That was approved. You approved the amendment at the March meeting. It finally got posted in PeopleSoft, thankfully. So that is all included in the budget. And, you know, it's a very large undertaking. There's a lot of work that goes into it, very large document. I'm sure that not all the questions will come today, but certainly throughout the course of the fiscal year, please ask anyone at Parks about the budget document. I think that I was just going to segue into if Phil wanted to talk about the budget by program groups.
Bill?
Yeah, we got a little bit more to the presentation. I mean, we can be quick. We did shorten it down to be even quicker than normal, but Just real quick in administrative services, this is where all the millage revenue goes. It is 95% of our administrative revenue. Couple points on expenditures. The county does charge Parks and Recreation indirect charges for use of general fund services. That's up over $1 million, which is about 17% of our administrative expense. And then our other large expense in administration is the full-time sheriff's office contract. That's $844,000. That's full-time lieutenant, full-time sergeant, 3 full-time deputies, and administrative part-time staff. So we did a few years ago break out the communications and marketing into its own program underneath administration. And then we've also done that for planning and resource development this year. So I believe Desiree and Melissa are both on the call if they want to briefly go through their slides, and then we'll turn it over to the other chiefs.
Thank you, Phil. Just real quickly, I wanted to let you know our department has 4 full-time and 3 part-time staff. And my elevator speech about our department is that we act as an in-house agency, writing, editing, photography, social media, website, design, printing, anything and everything you can think of to promote the park system and provide them with the tools that they need to do to get their jobs done. At the beginning of each year, my group likes to set some goals that are going to be the top things that we're working on in addition to our day-to-day operations. And so basically, we would be supporting the initiatives of the millage any way that we need to do that. If there's anything else related to the golf RFP, besides what we've provided so far, we will continue to support the golf courses. That's high on our list. And then also, for the last over a year, a big part of what we do is communicating to our guests how we are operating to keep not only visitors safe, but also staff safe through the COVID pandemic. So that's another one as well. And that's it for me.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll be really brief as well.
Okay.
This is actually the 2022 budget. It will actually be the first time that there'll be a planning and resource development kind of sub budget pulled out of that, which I'm really excited about. Even though for the most part, our budget is just our staff. It's our 3 full-time and our 2 to 3 part-time staff. I know I just did a report or an update on planning and resource development and all that we do at a previous meeting, so I won't go through it in too much detail. But really just wanted to note that this is a typo, it should say for 2022, there will be a $35,000 contracted services line item in there for that countywide annual survey that we do leading up to the next 5-year recreation plan. So you'll see that as an expense for 22. But that's about it.
Okay. Is there anybody else?
Just real quickly with RPS, we have our staffing. We go oversee a large area of programming, both within our parks and out in the communities with our mobile units. We have about 100 part-time staff and approximately 10 full-time staff within the department. And we're looking at recreating everything that we do through the pandemic and then bringing back all of our normal events, hopefully coming this fall and over the winter time. So we have appreciated your support.
Okay.
Facilities maintenance, just so for some of our newer commissioners, facilities maintenance really supports all of the cost centers out there. We're not a revenue generating cost center, but we support every budget center out there and the things that we do, providing the highly skilled professional staff and tradesmen out there. And some of these pictures you can take a look at and see the things we've done in-house, building yurts and concrete work and things along that lines. The next slide, please. New for this year, what's really exciting to me, and I know Sarah Cook-Malin, our natural resource coordinator, is really excited about this, is that we're pulling out the natural resource department right out of facilities maintenance. It used to always be held in programmatic funds within the maintenance management plan, and we're actually pulling that out into an actual cost center and incorporating our collaborative invasive species management areas within the natural resource units, because they are so closely related to each other in the things they do, and going across jurisdictional boundaries is really kind of an exciting aspect to help promote the invasive species management of everything we do as an organization and outside those adjacent boundaries too as well. So that's all incorporated in natural resources, and that's all a single budget.
Real quick through the chair.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that last slide, my husband and I adopted that little turtle. We thought they were unique. I found one just randomly, didn't know the rules about turtles, but it lived for about 4 years and we took really good care of it. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Golf courses, Mr. Hughes.
So yes, the golf courses you see on page 45 to 65. If there's any questions from the commission, we're just kind of waiting for this year to see how it goes with all the changes we made. So everything for the budget for 2022 is forecasted based on those numbers. So until we get through the season, we're just kind of a guesstimate. So we're encouraged right now of how the numbers are looking for the season. So what we have forecasted for operations, we're pretty confident will be a good number.
Okay. Conference centers.
Conference centers are a big unknown right now. Hopefully get back to normal operation. We base all our budgeting numbers on previous years prior to COVID. So using those as a baseline going forward for our budgets for 2022.
This is Jim Dunleavy. The day use parks, as you can see, they're multi-use parks. So we have a lot of things going on in each park. The thing that happens with the staffing, we do have full-time and part-time staff involved in each park. But what we do with that is we actually, one supervisor could be over multiple parks. Like for instance, Waterford Oaks supervisor is over Highland and Rose Oaks. So how that works is we put percentages of the staff time towards each of those parks. So it's just kind of a breakdown of that. And you can see down in the bottom about approximately what our revenue is, and that's for annual park passes that we sell, and also a breakdown of our pavilion rentals that we do. So next slide, Phil. The dog parks, as you know, we have 3 dog parks, and each of those parks are a little bit unique and offer different amenities at each of them. Something that's really been important for us because of limited staff are the Iron Rangers, the pay stations that we put out. So that actually provides revenue at any point during the day that people come out to the park. They always have that opportunity to buy that pass. If they buy it at that, they can put that towards an annual pass. I think they have like a week to put that towards it. So, and they are open year round. And that's all I got. Oh, campgrounds. As you can see on our campgrounds, we have the 2, and you can see that Addison is a little bit smaller than Groveland Oaks. So 174 sites compared to 267 sites. Both parks provide very similar things with boat rentals and bike rentals, and they have an amazing campground rec program that a lot of people look forward to, and most of that is happening now during the weekends, and that won't start until a little bit later in the season, I think around Memorial Day. And you can see they bring in quite a bit of revenue to campgrounds. So that's all I got.
Okay.
In water parks, another unknown, we didn't open last year in 2020. Trying to open some capacity this year. But everything we're budgeting for going forward will be full operation of Red Oaks and Waterford Oaks and our new features at Red Oaks. So that's our plan for 2022.
That is our budget presentation. If any commissioner would like us a one-on-one with the budget, I know it's like drinking from a fire hose. We're more than happy to do that with you. So just let us know.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the budget?
I move motion.
Moved by Quirrell, supported by Herzog. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gilvery.
Yes.
Nash? Did we lose Mr. Nash?
Said he had to
Okay.
go.
Okay, Quarles,
Yes.
Stokes? Mr. Stokes? Is that a
Sorry,
thumbs
I
up?
was muted, but I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vanderveen?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Herzog?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, Vicky. Okay, next item on the agenda, under regular agenda is Oakland County Parks and Rec Water Park opening. Sue.
Yes, commissioners, I would like to introduce Tony Droughts, who's on the virtual meeting today. Tony is with the Oakland County Health Division. I would especially like to thank him and his staff for all the efforts, not only with COVID, but also specialized help they've given us in direction with the water parks and other operations. So I just wanted to start out because of the latest order that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has put out, has sort of put a roadblock on us opening our water parks. And Tony, I don't know if you wanted to give a brief overview on that for the commissioners.
Sure, thank you. Since we spoke last week, Sue, the governor came out yesterday and actually had changed the orders a little bit. The orders that we had discussed went into effect April 19th and were set to expire on May the 24th. The new orders, and it doesn't really change what we've discussed, and the water parks still should remain closed. There are some limitations for public swimming pools that we discussed, but these new orders go into effect tomorrow and are extended through May the 31st. What's made it difficult for us as a health division to try to help individuals plan for a number of events, not just pools, but restaurants, some of the big events like Renaissance Festival, Arts Beats and Eats, Woodward Dream Cruise, things like that, are that we can only give advice and consultation and direction and guidance based on the current rules that are in place. And many of these events are going to be occurring after, and now in this case, May 31st. So it's been difficult for us, and I know it's difficult for Sue and her staff to plan what exactly is going to be allowed at any given time. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're looking at really daily cases have dropped of COVID. The percentage of positive cases have dropped. The number of hospitalizations have dropped. And as a result of that, the governor has introduced last week this Michigan Back to Normal plan. So we're really looking now on vaccination rates, and the number of people they estimate that have at least one dose, first dose, or Johnson & Johnson is a single dose, but Pfizer, for instance, is a 2-dose, is 50% in Michigan. Restrictions will be lifted from the mask and the gathering orders, the health orders that are currently in place. As we approach 70%, we don't anticipate that she's going to have any gathering and face mask orders in place at that time. So the sooner we approach that 70% is when these restrictions would be lifted. As far as the water parks go, they are defined in the order and in the FAQs, and it's explained a little bit more in depth. And currently the water parks are still not allowed to open. One of the things that came up was the fact that we have lifeguards, and I know that there's been a struggle, I think, Sue, to have a number of lifeguards in place to monitor these things. So if we got to a point where we could reopen, are we going to have people that are going to be able to enforce the outdoor pool orders that won't allow any more than 50% of bather capacity limits, for instance? I think we've talked about lifeguard questions as far as, can they even train to get certified? Is there an exemption? There is an exemption in the orders that if you're actively engaged in public safety, as a role in public safety, that you would be exempt from something like that. So, you know, as much as I'd love to give you a definite answer on where we're going to be when you guys decide to open the pools, whether that's Memorial Day weekend or sometime thereafter, you know, I can only speak as to what the rules are now and what the health orders say currently. And that's just difficult. So I hope that's what you're looking for. I mean, I can take any questions, but, you know, I can only tell you what the rules are now. And unfortunately, the pools aren't going to be open. I don't know what the rules are going to be after May 31st.
So Tony, it might be helpful if I could give the recommendations, and then they may have some questions afterwards, is that pools can be used for instructional purposes. So for example, your goldfish swimming are open because they're considered instructional. High school pools can have swim lessons, but you cannot have waves on and have unstructured play, as they like to call it. So we have scheduled with the health department the ability to license our wave pools with no waves on for the sole purpose of training our lifeguards. And we could do that before the order is lifted. Our concern is once the order's lifted, people are going to be in line the next day, you know, ready to go to the pool. But we have to train our guards, we have to get guards, and then we have to also have our inspections. So if the order is lifted May 24th, 31st, our best case scenario is Red Oaks would open June 21st. Historically, the last 4 years, we weren't open Memorial Day weekend. Just because we would open and then we would close for 2 weeks and only on the weekend. And we lost money during those time periods. So if we were to open the 21st for Red Oaks and shoot to open the 28th for Waterford Oaks. There currently is a capacity limit. It's 50%, which would affect the number of people who would be able to attend the water park. Depending on what features are open, it could be because of the number of lifeguards that are needed, the number that we have on board. We may look at doing 2 different time slots. For example, you could go to the water park 11 to 2, and then it would be open, or 3 to 6. Our goal would be to you would buy your ticket online. I think we all have realized that if you want to go anywhere, you buy your ticket online or make a reservation online. For a couple reasons, just because we would only allow a certain amount of people doesn't mean that number of people will show up. And also because of social distancing. So with all of this, there will be an investment in our water parks in that they weren't open last year. And we feel that we need to open them this year if at all possible, because the conditions, the levels of vaccines may be much lower in June, but by August, everybody may reach that 70% threshold, but we can't afford to wait. So it would be about a $200,000 to $300,000 investment in order to open the water parks. But we feel it's important that these features are open. So that's where we're at right now. We would move forward as if we're opening, but we wouldn't be able to make a decision until the orders are lifted. And we would bring back in June what the fees would be, because we would have a better idea of capacity.
Okay, are there any questions or comments, discussion? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jody?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate you being here. Next item is a resolution approving the National Parks and Recreation Month, July 2021. Is there a motion? Moved by Ebony, supported by Nancy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Nash? Quarles?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
Vanderveen?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Charles? Charles?
Yes.
Herzog?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Vaughn? And McGilvery?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passes 8-0.
Okay, next item is proposed initiative, proposed criteria for trailways and park development grant programs. Melissa?
Thank you. So this item was on our last commission agenda, and I know at that time I went through it in pretty good detail, walking through the different programs. This again are those two new grant funding programs that we will be operating out of Parks and Rec to provide funding for trail development and also park improvements throughout Oakland County, working with local municipalities to help them with their projects essentially. So we mirrored this criteria very closely to the DNR's criteria for the trust fund, which we were talking about earlier. The goal there was hopefully they can use this funding from the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission if they're successful as match towards some of that other grant funding. Or in some cases, they may have their own cash match that they could put toward the projects as well. I didn't intend to go back over it again in detail. I think we put it back on in case there were any additional questions or clarifications that were needed. You can see on page 67, the agenda memo there has the timeline that we were working on. So we were hoping for approval today of the criteria. That'll kind of let us move forward with a few things. One being onboarding a project advisor to help us kind of get the word out and start getting people interested in applying to this grant program later in the fall. Working through a very detailed process with IT on an online application process through the county's Laserfish program. So that'll be kind of the next step. And then essentially taking this criteria and putting it into a scoring matrix, essentially typical or similar to how the trust fund does it. So those will be kind of our next steps going forward once the commission approves that criteria. And keep in mind too, this criteria, while we didn't mirror it very closely to the trust fund, if we go through this first year and we want to change something, or we want to, do things a little differently, or maybe, move funding around to the different pots of money, we can always do that. But we think this is a really good start to the program.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Moved by Herzog, supported by LaFontaine. Any discussion?
Just I have a question, Gary.
Go ahead, David.
Have we attached any revenues to the, or any expenditure anticipated to this? And Melissa?
On Amazon, they have
Yep, in
these.
the 2022.
I can look them over. There's a lot of options too. You can get them with sleeves.
Somebody's not muted.
Something like
Andy, you
that.
need to mute.
Andy, you're.
I got him.
Thanks. So for 2022, we do have $750,000 allocated for the Trails Grant Program and $450,000 allocated for the Park Improvement Program. And again, if we get applications in and we think that we need more money for park improvements and less for trails, based on what people are looking to fund, we can always change that in future years.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Quarles?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
Vanderveen?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Herzog,
Yes.
LaFontaine,
Yes.
Long, McGilvery.
Yes,
Motion passes 8-0.
thank you. Okay, next item is D, which is proposed Oak Management outstanding debt agreement. And I'll turn it over to Phil.
Good afternoon again. Real quick, I don't have a proposed settlement yet. We've kind of got on the agenda just so I can keep the commissioners up to speed as we go through this process. We are still working very closely with Oak Management's leadership on a resolution to the outstanding debt. They're just really struggling right now. This year could even be worse than last year for them. They're seeing a lot of cancellations and postponements. They're up to $650,000 in refunds and transfers so far. So it's very uneasy market for them right now. And they're really looking for a resolution to solve the 2020 debt as well as what will be the 2021 debt, because we have utilities, but then they also have a large lump sum payment that is due at the end of September each fiscal year for us. So they're trying to come up with a solution that will kind of clean the slate for all of last year and all of this year. I just got the most recent, I guess, counter proposal from them the end of last week, and I've sent that back to our negotiations team of Chairman Woodward, Commissioner McGilvery, and Commissioner Vanderveen, and we'll be reconvening to see if we can make this work and move forward. But the sticking point really is making sure we get the past due utilities paid up and then get the utilities paid moving forward. And I think we're all in agreement there. It's really down to, some thousands of dollars on the past due rent and fixed payment that they owe. So we will be continuing to work through that, and I'm hopeful to have a proposed solution in front of you for June. It's just times got worse from their original proposal they offered us. They can't even agree to that these days. So it's ever changing times and hoping for the best to get their business up and running. But as we know, it's going to be one of the last ones to come back. So we will continue to work through this and hopefully have an update or an actual solution for you in June.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is a proposed purchase of an outdoor screen and audio equipment for mobile recreation. Ms. Boyd.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well today. Also with me is John Haney. He's our recreation supervisor, and he oversees our mobile rec division and some of our special events. The things that John worked on last year and in the past was outdoor movies. And when we do those right now, we have to rent the screen and the transmitter, and it's quite costly. And then last year during the pandemic, it was one events that we could do to gather people because they stayed in their cars. So we did quite a few of them, and they're very successful programs. It's something that our local communities also use. It's a great opportunity for us to rent it out as a mobile unit. It has a high turnaround rate of, there's not a lot of setup. We can do it with very minimal staff, and we can reach a lot of people. Part of the funding that we have for the millage increase was extended outreach services. Using this movie outlet is a great opportunity for us to work with communities, especially those that do not have extensive staffing or departments. So it's an easy way for us to do our outreach with minimal staff and great output to the communities. I can answer any questions, or John can answer any questions that we have. With what we normally spend in a year on the movies that we do just internally, we'd save about $7,500 a year. Plus, if we rented it out to communities and used it as part of our RAP program, we could bring in some additional revenue. So the largest amount of time we would have where we would get the money back for our program would be 5 years, and probably by year 2 or 3 if we did rentals on it. So the motion today includes the purchase We had 3 bids. We are suggesting the lowest bid. It meets all of our specs and qualifications, and it's quite a bit more affordable. It also has a price for our rental and then the budget amendment. So I can answer, again, John and I can answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions? I have one, if I could. Randy, we've discussed this in the past. Many years ago, I brought it up because I thought it would be a good idea to add to our equipment that we can spread out across all the CVTs in Oakland County. The big problem back then was the movie rights, and that would be way too costly. How has that changed?
So we have a membership with Swank, and we pay royalties. And what we do is we pay it through our program, and then we rent the movie rights. So what we would do is the communities would do the same thing. So we would have so many movies that we have that we've bought the rights for X amount of time. So it might be 2 weeks. And then renting it out, the communities would be responsible for, and most communities do have a Swank membership, or they pay dues and royalties for whether it's music or if it's movies that they do, say at camps or whatever. So that would be passed on to the communities. And that's pretty standard with movie rental agencies.
And this is our first unit of this kind, correct?
We had a inflatable screen many years ago. I believe that's out at Groveland right now. If it's still around, I don't, Sue, you have to answer if we ever rented it.
Not this size or caliber.
Right.
It
So
would
it would
be
be a large
size.
screen, and then people can listen to the audio in their car through their radio. So that's what makes it nice, for people can have their audio right in their car with them. It's not like the old time speakers where it projects just out in the open.
Okay. Any questions, Dave?
Just, have we had any feedback from theater owners? Would we have a problem from that segment of business with this, Brandy?
There's a few businesses that we use, but it's very similar with our bouncers. We have a lot of competitors who rent moonwalks and tents and so forth too. So, I mean, there's always a competitive market, but there's not that many out there.
Okay. So we're like an outdoor theater, I guess.
I'm sorry, Dave?
I guess we're like an outdoor theater from what you're proposing.
Yes.
Just one other comment. John, you don't need to wear ties during COVID time, just so you know. You're the only one here with a tie on, and you're making us all look bad.
John, I'm with you.
Then your audio's not working.
Sure, Donlin, go ahead. Show off a little bit.
Ask them both to stand up. Oh, look at you, John.
Very
You're
good, very
on.
good.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the purchase of this. Do we have a motion? Moved by Quarles and supported by Vanderveen. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Stokes,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderveen.
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Herzog,
Yes.
LaFontaine,
Yes.
Vaughn, McGilvery,
Yes.
Nash, and Quarles.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have item F, which is fiscal year 2021 contracted countywide invasive species treatments, budget amendment and approval. Do we have a motion? Moved by Quarles, supported by Bagley. even though I can't see her right now, but is Sarah, you are the one talking about this?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So just as a reminder, this is for the Oakland County SISMA. It's a cooperative invasive species management area. This is a group that Parks has worked with since 2014 when it was created here in Oakland County. It works to address invasive species and restoration issues across jurisdictional boundaries. So right now there's approximately 45 partners. Most of those are municipalities, so cities, villages, or townships that have representatives as part of the SISMA steering committee. And then as part of the 2020 millage, Parks requested long-term funding for the Oakland County SISMA to support both staff and community investments for treatments and restoration. Right now, Parks internally is working to incorporate the SISMA staff and to transition them from their current fiduciary into Parks. But this request is to expend funds in fiscal year 2021 on contractual treatments across Oakland County. So these are treatments that would be executed in cooperation with SISMA, but would be executed using county contracts. So existing contracts that Natural Resources uses for our treatments would be used for these treatments. So there's no additional, risk management or purchasing requirements that would have to be followed. Risk management has given us permission to complete treatments off of county property. So we already have permission to execute the treatments. And then the treatments were collected in the same manner that SISMA currently collects requests for treatment opportunities. So they get funding from the Michigan DNR to also do treatments. So we use the existing process that they had to submit the treatments, and then we prioritize them for either DNR funding or for potential millage funding. What we're asking you for today is to approve funding from that position for those SISMA treatments across the county.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, any questions or discussion? Hearing none. Vicky, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Vanderveen.
Yes, sorry.
Bagley?
Yes.
Charles? Charles? I see her, but I don't hear her. I'll come back. Herzog?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Long McGilvery?
Yes.
Nash? Quarles?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
And Charles?
Yes, I don't know how to use this iPhone.
Motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next are reports. The first one is fiscal sustainability report. Sue?
I would just reference the written reports on the financials in the packet. That will be the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need a motion to receive and file, Vicky?
I'm sorry. Yes, that would be good. Receive and file for this one.
Okay, do we have a motion? Moved by Quarles, supported by Charles. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Bagley?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Herzog?
Yes.
LaFontaine?
Yes.
Long McGilvery?
Yes.
Nash Quarles?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
And Vanderveen?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. The next item is item C, executive officers. Oh, I'm sorry, we skipped one. Farmers market report.
We just
Jeremy,
did
are
that.
you with us?
We just received that.
Oh, okay. Boy, I gotta start crossing them off a little better here. Executive officers report. Sue?
Just a few things I would like to bring to your attention. we are having, I will call it a challenge out at the ORV park. There has been concerns from the neighbors on Thread Valley, which is a subdivision across Dixie Highway, in regards to the noise level as well as the dust. The township supervisor, Bob DePalma, is very well aware of it, as well as the DNR. We are going to be doing sound testing out there this weekend, and we hope to be able to come up with a short-term resolution and a long-term resolution. But I just wanted you to be aware of it in case you hear of something. There is a sound problem and there is a dust problem. So.
Okay,
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Sue, regarding your noise problem, welcome to my world.
I will call you for advice. Normandy Oaks, the tentative date for the dedication is going to be on Saturday, June 26th. The time has not yet been determined, but probably sometime in the morning. Just want you to get that on your calendars, and we hope to have more information to you as soon as we get it. We're uncertain about the operation or how they're going to have the fair this year. They may operate it very similar to how they did last year, but they've been working with Tony at the health department also, so we will bring you up to date as soon as we hear what their plan is. Some commissioners have expressed going on a tour of our parks. I will admit, Andrea, I'm sorry that we are not going to see all the parks all in one day. We have all been there. That was Dan's way, but if anybody would like to go on a tour of a park or parks, I know Amanda was interested. I don't know if other Commissioner Stokes, Commissioner Charles, we're more than happy to set something up and get your schedules maybe at the same time where we can get a van and go out and tour them. You know, I think it's nice to be out there and see it. And we can do a North District and South District. So we will make that happen. And then lastly, I just want to reiterate, if you do want Jeff and I to go over the budget with you, we're more than happy to do so. It takes some of our staff 2 years to learn it, so it is very complicated.
Yes, that is correct. Anytime.
Okay, Sue, one quick question. At Normandy Oaks, how are we coming on our portion, which is the trails and the walk over the pond?
Sarah, are you still on? Melissa? It's almost completed. Go ahead. Why don't you?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, everything is almost completed. I know the city of Royal Oak has given that June 26th kind of grand opening day to their contractors as kind of a, you better have this all done by then. So they're actively working out there, and everything seems to be going really well. We check in with them, Sarah and I do every few weeks, and we've been focused on interpretive signage and getting some really cool interpretive signage out there that has our parks logos on it. So I don't know that it'll be in place and installed before that opening, but it'll be done shortly thereafter. So it's coming along great.
Great. David.
Today's Oakland Press has an article about the park and all the splendid things that are going on down there. I have to tell you, I'm very, very disappointed that not once was Oakland County mentioned in this article.
Mm-hmm. We caught that as well.
Sounds like an opportunity.
Just a footnote we all ought to remember.
Yeah.
Sounds like an opportunity for a nice letter to the editor, Mr. Vanderveen.
I like that idea.
If I can get Melissa to write that letter for me, I'll be happy to sign it.
I can do that.
Okay. Okay, next item is the executive committee's update. When we met for the executive committee, we mostly talked about Oak management and trying to reach some kind of a decision on that. The longer we let it go out, the more they owe. So we're trying to get it done as quickly as we can, but we're kind of stuck right now. So the other thing we talked about was a little bit was the water parks and how we might open them. And here we are a few weeks later, and we still don't have an idea because of all the executive orders from the state and then through our health department. So, and then we went over the agenda, and that's about all we did. So is there any other business that is unfinished?
I have one thing, Commissioner McGilvery. For those of you who don't know, Vicki Velko has taken the VSIP, the voluntary employment separation, and her last day of full-time employment was last Thursday. But she is coming back part-time to do our commission minutes. So for that, we are very grateful. But what we would like to do is at this time, thank Vicki on behalf of Oakland County Parks and Rec Commission and staff for her almost 10 years of service to the residents of Oakland County Parks. Her knowledge, her organizational skills and process have been invaluable to the Parks and Rec Commission as it conducts business to keep the park system running effectively and efficiently. Vicki's willingness to help with any task, including special events, including dedication and media events, will definitely be missed. So Vicki, in great appreciation for your years of dedication and commitment, we wish you long and happy retirement. And I have to say, I've never seen anybody more organized than Vicki. So Vicki, thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
More comments, Sue?
It's been a pleasure.
If I could too, Vicki, I want to say that Sue was absolutely right when it comes to organization. You have it all down, and she's the one. I've only been chairman for a short time here, and the entire time she calls me 3 times the day before the meeting, the day of the meeting, to make sure I got everything right. She has got it all down right, Pat, and she does a fabulous job. But we'd also like to welcome Shannon, who will be filling in for her for a while anyway. So if Shannon's on, I don't think she is. I don't see her on here, but we look forward to working with you as well. And if you ever need any tips, you can always call Vicki probably. So thanks, Vicki.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
David.
I was just noticing the picture that Sue showed up there with a little plaque around her Vicki under it. I thought, what an appropriate picture, a sunset on one of our valued assets, Vicki Velko. Congratulations on your career, Vicki. You've been super.
Thank you very much. Very kind. Thank you.
Okay, is there any new business?
You have one more comment for Vicki.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm new, as you all know, and I hate to think that it feels like everybody keeps leaving us, and all of these folks who I have been able to learn from just in these first 4 months. So Vicki, I just want to say your presence was always so warm and welcoming. You just made me feel, at least, that no question was too minute, and that if you didn't have the answer, you would seek it out. So I'm really going to miss you. I locked your number in and everything. I thought you were going to be like a lifelong reference. So I'm just going to have to take this one all in. And I'm not voting in support of your leaving. So not that anyone asked me.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to follow along, being the new guy on the block, and Vicki it's been very, very, very helpful. And I have great appreciation. And when I read that you were leaving, I said, no, she can't go. So, but I'm glad that you will be staying on part-time. And I wish you joy and happiness in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, there being no further business, the meeting stands adjourned, and thank you for hanging around so long. Sorry it took
Thank
so
you.
long.
2 hours
Thank
on
you.
the clock.